So welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Finance Subcommittee meeting. It is Wednesday, June 15th. We're in the lower level conference room of the Town Hall. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. First up on the agenda is approval of Finance Subcommittee minutes of May 11th. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at them? Yes? No?
Yeah, I was not here though, so I'll have to abstain.
But did you look at them?
Yes.
Okay.
I did, but I'm going to abstain as well.
You are.
Not much of a vote then.
All right. I'm going to table that until we get a few more minutes then.
Okay.
How's that? Okay. Town Council Community Announcements. Does anybody have an announcement?
No.
Moving on. Is there anyone here from that's a resident that wants to make a community comment? No. Good. Old business, we have none. New business. Mr. Borg. Here comes Patrick now.
Madam Chair, do you know which items you would like? Closer. What measure you want to take first? Because you have a proposed order in front of you. I think if we go with measure 22-099, the RSR is the first one.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, Madam Chair and members of the Finance Committee, you probably remember a few meetings back we brought before the Town Council a request to hire a part-time employee, and this was the residential services representative. So what we've done is I've technically withdrawn that measure from consideration from the Town Council, and then I reintroduced a new measure. This measure would be to take $35,000 from the remaining free cash, which is right now $63,000 after the budget vote, and with the proposed snow and ice that would be voted on in a later measure. We did some research. We would like to hire a contractor, a part-time 20-hour per week contract employee that would not be a town employee. And so they would not be entitled to the benefits of insurance and everything. We went to a number of sources and consulted with various job hiring sites and for somebody that in a similar position to this, and the $35,000 is a little more than what that 20 hours per week based on 52 weeks would provide. So we added some flexibility for, if this is approved, for some overtime, and the actual wages came to about $29,000, close to $25 an hour for this. What we see is the opportunities that this individual would be able to bring to us. If I were to describe one of my observations in where we have a shortcoming and are looking for assistance here in town, it's incapacity, right? We have a lot of great employees. We have a lot of great systems and processes that are all working right now, but we're limited by the ability to, manage websites, manage social media, right? Engage with public on a daily basis. We have a number of different systems that are out there right now. We have the action needed report, A&R. If you want to come in and have the town look at something, we ask you to come in, fill out this form, drop it off, and that puts us on notice to respond back to this question or issue or concern formally, right? We test out a department. We get see, click, fix, right? The majority of those right now go to Public Works, but a lot of them come through the town manager's office, right? And Karen is, and unfortunately she's not here tonight, has the responsibility to manage this, right? But she also serves as the clerk of council, right? So she's preparing minutes, and she supports this committee specifically with, copious notes and making all the different products and deliverables that are due for this. We're at the point where we need some sort of additional capacity. The previous concept was to bring that on as a part-time person, potentially look at maybe full-time. After re-examining it, we feel that we have an opportunity to potentially bring somebody on right at that $25 an hour range for part-time without paying the benefits that would be associated with being a town employee. So, and then do this potentially on a year-to-year basis if it's supported. But we see this person helping us manage communications. You probably noticed the new town sign that we have out front. That's a new piece of equipment that we're getting a lot of good response from. We're getting good feedback from the community on the message. We're still learning how exactly to manage the message, right, and put, craft it so it fits into that 6x6 box on the screen, and what colors to use and different things. But that's all coming out of the assistant town manager, Karen, right, Justin, those individuals that have other established duties and responsibilities to do that. At the same time, we're answering phones and taking in a lot. So there's been a couple opportunities where we think that this position would be extremely helpful for us and the town in managing and coordinating communications. Let me give you a couple examples. The Big Red Bucks program, right? The number of calls, dealing with a number of issues that were concerned with how it was going to work, how redeem it, dealing with the vendors, how do I sign up for it, right? Those all came in. Lyle Perney did a great job with the program, right? He went around and knocked on each one of the vendors, got them to all sign. But Lyle, and it is somewhat related to what his job, duties and description as the economic development coordinator. But if I could have had Lyle working on selling or getting grants for the Courtois site and converting that into a property that provides revenue stream back to the town, that would have been more better, right? Well spent time on his effort. Where we see that this person could be that engagement, right? That thing. We also saw an opportunity on the very recent 40R apartment complex development discussion. We're right now answering a number of calls every day, and rightfully so, about the 40R development.
Well, you did give them your phone number at the hearing.
And I stand by that decision wholeheartedly. But we have all the data, and a lot of those are coming to me personally. I know some are going to the council president. I know he shared one with me today that I've responded to. But we envision this residential service is being that conduit of, okay, hey, I've got the package of information, right? Here's our response. Can I help you? You want to reach out to potentially a council member, right? And I imagine that the councilors are all probably receiving some input and feedback on the 40R from the public and talking about the different aspects of traffic and everything around it and what we're trying to do there. So we saw that as an opportunity where this person. We also see this person as an individual that would be able to help with our social media accounts, right? Coordinating with all the department heads. What do you need and what can we target with our social media? How do we want to message that? That's an internal discussion at, the department head level, but it's also the department heads that, have to go onto the social media, put this in, and make it. But there's another benefit that we see to this person is coordinating with our boards and committees, right? Because we did make a move earlier where we consolidated the vast majority of our social media accounts into one town account, and being able to coordinate with those boards and committees and reach out to them and say, hey, it's July. What message do you want to see into July? What can we help promote? How do we help focus this, right? We see this person doing this. We also see this person, when it comes to social media, monitoring it, right? And our policy thus far with social media has been to, not respond to comments, right? And I still think that's the appropriate, and we're going to see all kinds of comments for and against, and a wide variety of, different aspects of, whatever issue they may be commenting on. But if this person is in place, what we see them also assisting with is looking at those comments and then reaching out to them potentially. Hey, I saw you say X, Y, Z. I have some information. Would you like to, can you can we call you? Can we help you out? That we can get more information to help resolve the problem. Because one of the issues that we see is a lot of folks that will, use social media as a platform will say X, Y, or Z about a certain issue. But then they would never come into town hall and they wouldn't call us. Facebook, Instagram, great tools. But if we don't know, if we're not looking through that specifically for a message and where we can have an opportunity to have a touch point with a resident in the community, right, we could miss it. And if we miss it, and they don't come in or call in or fill out an A&R, it's an opportunity. We see this residential services representative as that dot connector, right? That person that will work with us, work with our department heads, and be able to bring in the appropriate resource that town has, line it up with them, and help solve their problem or point them in the right direction. No, look, they may get answers they don't like, and that's all. And they may make that comment on social media as well, and that's okay. That's okay. But I think, and what we're trying to do is bring this position in as an effort to coordinate, collaborate from the different resources that we have in town, and then be able to take that communications, that engagement with our residents to the next level. I would say we do a really good, when I know, look, I hold an open door policy every Thursday, so from 4 to 6 p.m. Any resident that wants to come in, any department head, my office is open, come in. When we try to do resident engagements, when residents want to come in and talk with me about whatever issue or topic, we usually schedule it between 4 and 6 p.m. on Thursday, but it's open. But that's only one part of it. I think there's a lot more to this communication strategy, and this is really what this is about. And I think at the value of $35,000 for 1 year at 20 hours a week, it could help fine-tune our messaging, heard all of the different agencies, aspects, and resources that the town has, and sharply focus and target our messaging to those people that are looking for it. I'm happy to answer all your questions on this particular issue.
John?
So I'll start by saying I think this is a much better approach than bringing someone on full-time. I think ultimately, I'd like, looking at the description, it's a ton of like little things, right? It's kind of all over the map a little bit for me to fully understand what this person is going to do on kind of a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. I would like to see something a little bit more specific. And then the only thing I would caution is if, this is a part-time employee and the ultimate plan is to bring this person on full-time, if it is successful and, you see the benefit, coming back to us, I'd love to see some measurables and deliverables of, actually proving out the value of this position. So yeah, that's all I have to say on it.
Mr. Porter, I would just say, I absolutely agree. I think having the data and the metrics to determine, whether this has been a successful initiative or not would be absolutely key and vital to that. I think we're going to, we've got an idea of what this is going to look like, but I think 3 months into this, we want to step back and say, is this exactly, what we thought it would be? Is it working the way? Do we need to modify it anyway? But I think that continuous assessment and whether it's working or not, it would be a part of this process as well.
Chris?
If I may. Echoing Mr. Porter's comment, I agree. I just was curious if you have any metrics in mind that determine a pass-fail for this, because as a contract position, it seems like, hey, we want to try it and see if it works. How do you know, yes, it worked, or no, it didn't work for you?
Yeah, so some of the initial metrics that we were considering was the number of public engagement from via social media, where instead of being reactive, that we were proactively communicating with the public when we saw an issue or problem that might not have come in. So we would track that. Working with all the boards and committees. I mean, I could give you our social media data, but I don't think that really tells a story about this person. The number of phone calls on any particular issue, right? I think over the next couple months, if we continue with this 40R discussion with Marcus Partners, there are going to be a huge number of phone calls, walk-ins, as well as social media, because I know I've already seen it on social media, right? They want somebody said, vote me out of office, right? Did you see that one? So, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, since you're not elected.
But that goes to my point, right, would be like, being able to put, a measurement. Was that successful in tracking that? I think some of this is going to be on-the-job training and trying to figure out, what the right metrics to track. I've been a part of organizations in the past. We tracked a lot of different things that didn't tell us a lot of anything, right? So being able to, get the wheat from the chaff and understand what information is really being told there, I think that'll allow us, but our commitment is to do that continuous assessment process and then fine-tuning that.
Yes, I think what I've seen as well on social media has indicated a significant amount of contacts coming to yourself or your staff very recently. And if this position can make sure that you're able to focus on everything through the day-to-day that is coming up, as opposed to rehashing the same thing over and over, then there could be value very quickly without tracking a million different things. Because I see that as one of the key things here, is being able to engage with the community and keep them informed without it always necessarily being you standing there informing.
Yeah. And it's a very valid point. I mean, today, I spent 30 minutes crafting a messaging regarding this one particular issue, right? But that's part of it right now. That's part. I've worked with the team to take that on. I think this person would absolutely help out with that and be an ombudsman for our organization and for the community.
Craig?
Just looking at the numbers, so effectively $35 an hour for this person?
$25 an hour. I built in, at that rate, $25 an hour, I built in enough to pay for overtime if that were necessary.
Okay, $25 an hour. Direct contract with the person, or is this through some sort of agency?
If an agency, we'll put it out, if we're successful, we would advertise it. I wouldn't discourage an agency from applying to it, but I can't change the money. So if an individual, I actually see this as a great opportunity for someone that, may have a few hours every day. Maybe they have kids in school, right? Mm-hmm. And this would fit into those parameters of doing that. I think an individual could fill it, but obviously if an agency came in, we'd have to discuss how they're going to fulfill any potential contract. And I'm really looking for stability. I don't want the rotating chair because I think it's about relationships that you have to build not only with the different boards and committees, right, but also with the different department heads and then with the community, right?
I'm just looking at it from usually in my experience with these agencies, there's a referral fee or a headhunting fee that follows on if you do, and that, again, it's just additional costs, and then there's, hey, I'm used to my dollar amount, this is what I want. They tend to end up being a lot more expensive at the end. And I'm wondering, is $25 an hour relative to the other equitable positions within the town, is that fair and reasonable for this level of duties? Because I'm thinking this is kind of more of a utility player without a specific task, without a specific experience level coming in and being self-driven. And I'm worried that if that level comes in, does that disrupt the internal equity at this level?
It's a perspective that when we were looking at where the right landing point for where salary and what we were willing to pay, the ideal candidate that we had envisioned, right? We didn't see it coming from an agency. We saw it as an individual, potentially somebody in town even that understands and has how North Attleboro works, right? But proactive, effective communicator. So we went through that, then we compared that to other similar type jobs through some of the job boards and services that we had. And we landed at the right salary range for this particular. It's competitive, right in the area of what our employees, right, make today here in Town Hall as well. Okay. So we don't see a disruption based on this one position coming in at that rate. But again, we're trying to compare apples to apples. This would not be like if we were, the crossing guards make X, and this person would make Y. Not comparable.
So from a operational point of view, I completely agree that highest best use, for somebody like Lyle to be out there doing that greater economic development rather than the administrative. I'm all for that, so long as, they're fully tasked, fully burdened, and fully operational in getting what they need to get done, so that, 20 hours isn't a pick-up, put-down problem, and also getting the right level of work done.
Absolutely.
Patrick?
I think on the social media strategy aspect, I'm still a little leery of the strategy of directly replying with people rather than just being a publisher of information. But that aside, because I think that's not completely relevant to whether or not we fund this contract, I definitely think, we'll see if it's proven to be effective, if it's a good use of time and money, but I think, I'd like to propose a lot more than the previous one of actually hiring someone and just doing it as a, one-year contract to see what the deliverables are, what the metrics are, and if it's successful in the future, to do another contract or hire an actual full-time person for it. So I'd be in favor of it.
Councilor Reynolds, just one quick response on the social media. I even with this person, I don't see us responding publicly to a comment on social media, like say, oh, you're absolutely wrong, that's not the way it is. I don't see us doing it. What I see this is that you see a post that says, something to the effect, the town never does this, right? I see our person seeing that comment and then potentially messaging and say, hey, I saw that you did this. Can I get you more information? Is there some information that you're looking for? How can we be of assistance? I don't see it as we're disputing what you wrote, right? But if we can provide you additional information, if there's something that we can clarify, that's how I see this aspect of the social media. I think that it's a slippery slope, and and I'm not using social media as a mechanism to call out people, but only to provide information about town activities, town commitments. So I want to stay in that vein.
Yeah, and I still think there's a lot of pitfalls in that approach too. I think, if everyone was acting in good faith with their complaints and their engagement on social media, that wouldn't be a problem. But I think a lot of people would be acting in bad faith sometimes. But regardless of that, I think that's future conversation and shouldn't stop us from doing this contract.
Kathleen?
Well, I'm a big fan of this position. I think that we have, like you said, right from the very beginning, the town has so many great processes in place. We've got the department heads, we've got the departments, everything I think that we need to run a great town, and we're not really meeting our constituents where they're at. For whatever reason, we struggle to get the information out. One of the recent examples is that 40R meeting. There were so many people saying, I didn't know it was there, and I didn't know what was happening, and I felt like I saw the message around a lot. So somehow we're not meeting people where they're at, and I think this is a great step for the town to take to try to do that. I'm all for it.
Okay. I just have a couple of questions. How, just in reference to when this person will begin, I assume it's a July 1 or after July 1?
Madam Chair, this would be, if approved and back out of the council, the earliest would be the 22nd of June. Because it's FY22 free cash that's available, we would begin and work with HR for the advertisement period. I would think sometime at the earliest, we're looking at probably mid-July.
Okay.
So really, realistically, probably with us advertising, someone giving notice if they're working someplace else, or if the opportunities, they're ready available, mid-July, end of July is probably more.
All right. And where are we with our new website?
Great question. Matter of fact, I have a review of the design and all the migration of some of the data from each of the departments is now underway. You all, the council members, should have received a sample of what some of the versions, and we asked for some feedback. A lot of the feedback that we got is being incorporated into form and functionality. I review it next week and get a dipstick to see where it's at. But we're right now, and I'm not told anything different, we're tracking a 1 July publication date for the new website.
Awesome. Do you plan to, I know we don't have any extra lines now, but with the new phone system, do you plan to have a dedicated phone line for this person so that even Karen doesn't have to answer and I'll transfer you
Yes, we would create a dedicated line for this, but that's going to be probably sometime in the mid-FY of this next upcoming, or...
Yeah, I know, but we do have a new phone system planned, so.
That's right. And so we see that this person would have a dedicated communications line. And we have office space in the town manager's office
Yeah.
for this position, so.
All right, and then I don't know when solid waste is moving, but you could always take advantage of their phone. They're going to take their phone numbers with them, though, so you still won't
We
have
want
any
them
phone.
to take their phone numbers.
Yeah,
with them.
okay.
But the system's modular and should be able to accommodate, and will accommodate our needs for a number of lines.
And going back to what Craig had answered, I can't even imagine the agency would be interested in this particular type of position, especially being 20 hours, but are we going to have an employment contract with this person?
We would have an employment contract
Okay.
with this person.
So everything will be laid out and identified?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any more questions from the committee?
I just have one request. To the point about the metrics, is it possible to have a, what's a reasonable amount of time? 9 month,
90 days.
90 days of?
I'd like to give you a review in 90 days.
Oh, you mean probationary period for the employee?
No,
Oh.
No, just come back and ask us for feedback and lay out the metrics. that we're
Oh, okay,
tracking.
all right.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to have that. I know I always request people give me the metrics you want to track before you go hire somebody. This seems to be a little bit after the fact, but yeah, if we can do it after 90. But I'd like to actually have one around the 9-month period. That way, when you go into the final discussion as to whether you thumbs up or thumbs down, we have a better perspective as to how the performance is. And really, I would imagine there's going to be things leaking out of the woodwork that this person will be picking up, and things that you can't even envision right now. So I'd like to actually see what that entails.
Mr. Cameron, I'm very comfortable with that. I'd like to come in with that initial 90-day, and then 180 days after that, which would be a day 270, that's the 9-month mark,
Yeah.
kind of give you a roll-up, and then that would kind of foreshadow whether the program was successful and whether we were going to ask to renew it or potentially roll it in.
Makes the next decision easy.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no more discussion, it's your turn now.
I don't remember language. Move to send Measure 2022-009 back to the Town Council with a favorable recommendation. Approval of the $35,000 from free cash to execute a 1-year contract for a resident services representative.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? I can't even count. 6-0. Okay, what's the next one you got there, Mr. Bogue?
Madam Chair, this will be Measure 22-092, approval of funding for the first-year memorandum of agreement between the town and the North Attleboro Police Dispatchers Association.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we came to an agreement with the dispatchers. Now, our Chief McQuaid was a part of our bargaining team with it, so I'd like to highlight a couple of things from this particular memorandum of agreement. One, we came to an agreement for a 3-year contract. For this particular contract, we also agreed to a 2% in the first year and a 2% in the second year, and then a 2% increase in the third year. You may ask yourself and say, with today's inflation rate, does this make us competitive? And these are absolutely essential employees to the town. These are the men and women that are answering the phones when a 911 call comes in. Thankful for what they do. They're integral to keeping us safe. The reason we came to an agreement on that 2% is that we included a 4% for the Step E, and you have the table there, for dispatchers with 15 or more years. And a number of our dispatchers, the majority of them, have over 15 years. It was previously in the contract a $1 agreement that it would be more. But that failed to account for inflation, cost of living, different aspects, and it pinned it at $1. So $1 over the next 3 years would not be the same dollar that we agreed to it today. So we changed that, and we arrived at an agreement of 4% for those individuals. So that, served as a recruiting and retention incentive. And a lot of our dispatchers, some will actually go on to become police officers, right? I think that's true.
Absolutely.
Right? And I know we have one officer that's coming out very soon out of the academy.
Correct.
That started out as a dispatcher. But so in this agreement, that we saw that as one of the keys to success. And previously, their contract had been reduced from 40 hours to 37.44 as cost-saving measures by the town. And what that created was a slight problem that the dispatchers and the officers' shift change didn't coordinate. And these dispatchers would end up staying on for that amount of time to match up with their shift change over the week. I didn't think that was fair.
It's not.
And so part of the reason we were able to come to the 2% was in this agreement, I also agreed to pay them for 40 hours that they would be, and they would align with the shift. So that provided them some extra income that they currently are not getting. And then we went into the position of the lead dispatcher, and Chief McQuaid and I had some very, very good discussions about the lead dispatcher. What we see is that the lead dispatcher, is somebody that is critical. They're lining up training, they're coordinating schedules, they're going above and beyond just what a dispatcher does. So we came to an agreement that that individual would receive a $3,000 a year stipend to be the lead dispatcher. So there is a connotation, there is a difference. You can be a dispatcher, but if you're the lead dispatcher, you're the one accountable for the scheduling, all the issues, the vacation, the leave, the holiday issues, the people that are on sick. But most importantly, you're the conduit of information to the chief of police to make sure that our chief has all the information about what's happening with dispatchers, where they're at, right? Coordinating with also the fire chief, on fire aspects of dispatching. And then working with each of the dispatchers to ensure on another feature that we did to pay some is the maintaining of the CPR certification. And I just want to, if somebody's asking out there, we're going to give $300 in a stipend to somebody who learn how to do CPR. Yes. But this certification is walking somebody over the telephone how to do CPR to save somebody's life. Much different than taking the life-saving course and learning how to clear the airways. It's very different. They have to do that on an annual basis. And then I also wanted to invest in the education and the professional development of our dispatchers. So they have to do a professional development activity that they give back to the chief of police, right? And he approves it could be a wide range of subjects, from dealing with somebody extremely emotionally distraught over the telephone, and they took a course or a webinar on how to do that, right? They would get qualified for that additional stipend, so we built that in. And then the other aspects of this particular things, we agreed to allow the dispatchers to exchange holidays up to 9 holidays per fiscal year. So just a quick explanation of that. Previously they had 6. So if you were scheduled and you fell on a holiday, you could take a holiday and you would get credit for a holiday, or you could work and then you could get paid back for that holiday. We did the analysis. We looked at the number of individuals that actually did it. It was very small, only a couple, because I said to them, my preference is I want you to take the holidays. I want you to be able to rest and recuperate. But at 9 days with that, we don't see that will be an issue, and the budget for the police department, where all of this money will go to, will be able to provide that, right? We clarified some language on the sick leave abuse policy. We did some house cleaning and changing this from the old town administrator and board of selectmen to the town manager form of government, and that really kind of looked at really the grievance process, and that was cleaned up, and we were able to do that. So this 3-year agreement for our dispatchers will come to a total of $70,638.40. The dispatchers union has met and ratified and signaled their support for this contract as well. The funding from this would come from the salary reserve amount that we have approved in the FY23 budget, which is at $1.2 million. And as you'll see, as we go through all these contracts, we built in the amount that we would need for each of the contracts into the salary reserve to be able to fund these. And with the committee's indulgence, I would like just to make a couple comments that I would like to apply to all of the contract negotiations up front. One, we're seeing unprecedented inflation and pressures, financial pressures on our employees today. My objective when I went through this bargaining process was not only to represent the town in this aspect, but it was also to do the very best that we could for our employees. Inflation is at an all-time high. Price of fuel is at an all-time high. We know that it's an extremely tough job market right now, and that retaining our employees is absolutely critical to this process as we move forward, and that having the right incentives. This year, with the approval of this committee and the budget, when we went forward and announced our new vision insurance policy, and that we actually did very well with our previous insurance, the insurance company came back to us and said, "You're the only municipality that we know of that added benefits instead of taking them away." We're looking to become the employer of choice in the municipal organization here in the Commonwealth. I wanted to get every dollar I could and put it in our employees' pockets. Over this, there's $1 million out of the budget, and the town has the funding to be able to do this. We put it aside as we did this in the budget process. We made cuts appropriately in the budget to account for this with each budget where, and Chief Quaid will tell you, because he knows that I went into the police budget and I said, how much are we spending? You know, but we went back and forth and we had this process, right, this iterative process. But our employees deserve this, right? It's a good tool for us to retain them. They provide excellent service to the town. I look at, you know, if we were to lose any employee, but I'll just use Heather, for example, right? And she's been here, what, almost a year now, right? Almost a year. We would lose the time of, when she was out, the advertising time and the time to retrain, right? We may save a couple dollars if, you know, we paid somebody else that might have been very senior coming in at an entry rate. But it's going to take that individual potentially 3 years, right? If we were to lose the HR director today that's been here almost 20 years now? 20 years. We would not have, that vault of institutional knowledge cannot be replaced by somebody walking in off the street. It's just not going to happen. So retaining our employees was very much at the heart of what I wanted to do. There's going to be another discussion we're going to have on a different contract where we were losing employees faster than we could retain them, right? And it became a very vocal point, right? And we fought very hard to work with each one of these bargaining units to come to an agreement to be able to deliver. It's only here before you tonight because those bargaining units ratified the contracts to send it forward. Does that mean we got it all right and they're all 100% happy? Well, I'll go with 90%. But at the end of the day, on all of these contracts, it's critical for us to be able to maintain the levels of service and commitment that we have to our residents with these employees. So with that, I'll answer any of your questions on the dispatcher's contract.
John?
Yeah, just a couple quick questions. So the contract's for 3 years. Is that pretty industry standard?
That is the standard for a contract with a bargaining unit, although we have done some smaller contracts in the past. We have done one-year contracts before.
Yep.
I'll talk about one that we did. The 3-year contract is about the right point. It lets us lock in, and we'll be able to budget for the next 3 years after this on a fairly predictable, financial responsibility that the town will have.
Yeah. Okay. And then just quickly on the When the dispatcher's hours were dropped to, did you say 37 and a half? Were they being paid overtime for the, 2.5 hours so they could stay coordinated with the police officer shifts?
Not to my knowledge.
So no.
They just did it on their own volition to stay in now, does that mean every one of them did it? I can't speak to that, Chief. I mean, but I know they did it on their own because they felt there's, the right thing to do.
Okay. I was just going to see if there's any overtime, if that was accounted for in the 71K overall budget change going into the year.
There's an overtime component so we looked at when Chief builds his budget, there's an amount of overtime that we forecast we would have to, so if we have to cover for a callback for vacation time or sick leave, right, that all generates a holdback or a callback or an overtime opportunity that we have to pay for. So that is built into this number as well.
Okay. And how many dispatchers do we have? Just
13?
13.
Yes, we're hiring one right now, so
Okay.
technically 12, but about to be 13.
All right. Yeah, that's all I had.
Anybody else have a question? Greg?
Of course, I've got a couple.
Well, I know that.
The 70,000, is that per year?
That's for the first year of this contract.
Yeah, so then,
And it's built into it from that point
yeah, so it'll be 2% higher,
in the next
yeah,
year.
incrementally, okay. I just want to make sure, understanding that this is kind of a long-term commitment to these pay scale increases. I did have a question on the sick leave. I read through it quickly, but I'm assuming that this is a non-cash out type of benefit, meaning that at the end, hey, you have 150 hours in your bank that you haven't used, that is the maximum allowable, that stays, if you terminate, that doesn't get cashed out.
There's no payment for sick
okay.
leave.
All right.
No sick time buyback. Anybody else? I just had one question, because all those years I was there, I never paid attention, and I did the payroll. But we have new dispatchers now with new contracts. Do they get a differential? Do we offer that for the ones that work second and third?
There isn't a different, I'm sorry.
There is? Okay. I was just curious if they did.
No, I think it's
I don't
7.
think it is.
No.
7%?
Might be 7.
That's what it used to be for the police.
Yeah, the police are 8.
But, okay, then I don't have any questions, and
I move we send Measure 2022-092, approve the funding for the first year of the Memorandum of Agreement between the town and the North Attleboro Police Dispatchers Association, Massachusetts Coalition of Police Local 436, back to the town council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
it's measured, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. No opposition? Motion passes 6-0. Mr. Bo, did you want to do the snow and ice? Didn't you say we had a reserve fund too, or? No.
Mr. Hollowell's here. I mean, we do have two, knock those out quickly.
I didn't know if, because you mentioned it when I was upstairs, you wanted to take some of those out of order. I thought you wanted to do that one too, but it doesn't
We were
matter.
holding the snow and ice and the traffic sign one until Mr. Hollowell was back from his meeting.
Oh.
And he's here.
And he's here.
So, whatever order you want to go in, Madam Chair.
Well, you just met with your DPW?
Yeah.
With your board? It's Wednesday, that's right. Well, why don't we take care of Mr. Hollowell so he can go home to his lovely family?
I'm the only one who likes that back here.
Ladies first, what happened?
I'll be very quick, and I'll...
Sorry, Shannon. I'm sorry, Shannon, but he picked Mr. Hollowell. It was Mike Wilkesville.
I'd be more than happy to wait.
No. Go ahead.
Hold on, wait, Madam Chair, so which one do you want to take first? The snow and ice?
Yeah, he's standing here. Shannon will get you next.
I got 2.
You got 2.
Hold on. So let me go to snow and ice.
Okay.
All right, Madam Chair, Mark is here, so this is very good. This is Measure 22-104. This is to pay off our snow and ice deficit. As you know, we annually budget $250,000 for snow and ice. That is a number that is fixed, because if we raise that number in our budget, we've got to fund that amount each year. And then our commitment is through the free cash after the recap that will pay for snow and ice for that. This year, the amount to transfer from the salary, from existing free cash FY22, almost said salary reserve, is in the amount of $352,039.79. And that is to pay for salaries in the amount of $69,261.99, and then expenses associated with snow and ice in the amount of $282,777.80. Mark has attached our metric data tool that we use for tracking snow, and he's here to answer all of your questions. I'll turn it over to Mark if there's anything he wants to add at this time.
Anybody have questions for Mr. Hollowell? No.
That's how all my meetings go.
That's not true. You're a wealth of knowledge, but this isn't anything that we don't know. We know what snow and ice is. Okay, so is there a motion? Kathleen?
Yes, sorry. I forget. I move to send Measure 2022-104, funding for snow and ice deficit for fiscal year 2022, back to the Town Council for favorable recommendation.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and the amount is $352,039.79. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. No opposition, it's 6-0.
Madam Chair, with the RSR and this approval, that leaves our free cash balance at?
I was writing my notes.
No, I caught up with it. It should be right at $28,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Hey! And
Enough for a field trip for the council, but,
enough for a field trip.
okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You ready for the next one, Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go. This would be Measure 22-102. This is on the screen.
Okay, hold on.
Mark, go ahead.
So the TNC, which is a state agency, oversees the Uber rides and things like that. They give us like 20 cents per ride that generates from the town. So there's just over $16,000 in there, about $16,700. And I had come before the town council to request I use that money. The police department was looking to, they have portable message signs that are usually at Martin School but move around, and a lot of people at the Martin School area, because it's a busy crosswalk, were complaining about doing something, so the police asked if we could put a permanent one there. I was looking to utilize these funds to put permanent school zone 20-mile-an-hour signs on there. And during that time, we got an opportunity. Lyle Perney had talked to myself and the police department several months ago, back in, I think, late February, early March, on a state grant that they had. And we participated in that, and we ended up getting a state grant for just over $37,000. So with those two together, we were looking to do a bunch of improvements at all the schools. Right now, we have a Safe Routes to School grant that we're doing sidewalks in the Arnold Road, Crescent, Amvet area. And once that's done, we're going to mill and overlay all the roadways, and we're going to be putting in some of the signage in over there. So those two are taken care of. Looking at the other ones, can you go back one, Mike? Yeah, the Martin School, this is the original one we were talking about. These are solar-powered rapid flashing beacons. You press a button, they light up on both sides. It'll be a lot easier for the school crossing guard, as well as speed limit signs permanently located just past the school on each end. And that costs $11,590 for those two. Fall School, next one. Fall School, we were looking to do that crossing. That's also a major crossing. And then put up the speed limit signs. These are all timed, so they'd shut off during non-school hours. And then Community School and this building, we're looking to have 2 of the crossing beacons there, and then the school zones permanent ones outside of there. And we also think that'll help a lot for the people who are driving through. We've got a lot of complaints recently about South Washington, North Washington traffic driving over 20. So this will help slow people down on that. And then at the School Street School, I ran out of money, so I'm paying for this myself, but I thought we should give them something. Just put the speed limit signs. There is a crosswalk there. It's not heavily utilized. Most of the parents drive up and pick them up or park in the parking lot from Parliament, and walk over. But we are looking to put school zone signs up there to slow people down in that area. And those together come to, what was my number? About $57,000. So taking the TNC money, the grant money, and about $5,900 from our road budget, we should be able to this year get all the schools somewhat signalized for safer walking, which is a goal in this town.
There's 2 schools missing. What about Anvet and Roosevelt?
Oh, as I mentioned, Anvet and Roosevelt is under, we have an existing Safe Routes to School grant, so they'll be getting rapid flashing beacon crosswalks at Broadway and Arnold Road, and they'll be getting the school zone crossings at the slow school zone 20-mile-an-hour signs permanently installed at both Roosevelt and Anvet.
Okay. Just
Everybody gets
so
one.
everybody gets something, yeah. That was my point. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, just as a point of clarification, while this is highlighting and illuminating $57,000 worth of project, we're only asking you to appropriate $16,757 from the Transportation Network Company, that's the money we receive from Uber and Lyft for all of these, and to pay for the Martin in the fall. So that's all you're being asked to support. The rest of it is from other funding sources. Mark was just illuminating the other areas that, other activities are happening, so.
Shaking my pom-poms.
Well, it's important that everybody knows that all the schools will be attended to, so I'm glad you...
Right. Sometimes, well, we're doing the Martin and Roosevelt now, the Anvet and Roosevelt now, and I had a feeling that when those are all done, it's all everyone else would say, "What
Where's
about ours?"
mine? Yeah.
Right. And to be honest, they're all really important. They're all on busy roads.
Yeah.
So it really is needed in all these locations.
No, absolutely. I think that's wonderful. We're getting so much for so little money for a change.
A lot of good grants out there if you're willing to go get them.
Big bang for the buck.
And Madam Chair, this is just another great example of, this is funds that are generated not based on tax dollars, right, but from the rideshare program that the town benefits from. So $16,000 and no impact to other operations in the town.
Ooh, one last thing. We're getting new portable signs for the police so they can, because there's ones that are getting old that they can move around. And this one is actually cloud-based, so they can leave it there and it automatically downloads the information to their desks.
Oh, wow. Don't you just love technology? Any questions, gentlemen? And ma'am? No?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I love the idea. I'm wondering, is this the most effective means of getting people to slow down? And the reason I say that is if signs are up and people still, and I see it all the time driving to work, people just blow through the 20 miles an hour, and it really fires me up because it's 8 o'clock in the morning and people are cutting and weaving. So my question is, places where I have seen more aggressive approaches, in Pawtucket as a point of view, they put up the actual traffic ticketing functions.
It's not legal in Massachusetts.
It's not legal in Massachusetts.
No municipality has the ability to do
An active or a,
either a red light or speed camera.
We've thought about just putting a camera on there and making them think that it's like that, but I just blabbed.
Would it-
So
would it behoove us to, so for those areas in the street to work, there's a police officer that is readily available to send out a warning signal, if not an unwelcome, just to act as a deterrent, because I'm all for it, but if there's no impact behind the sign, people just kind of look at it and ignore it, and that's a waste of money in my opinion.
I will say the 20-mile-an-hour sign that's just passive isn't very effective. We have actually gotten good feedback from the residents of South Washington Street about the lighted sign as well as the Adamsdale area where we have actually put some of these signs, that it does make people realize, oh, I'm not supposed to be going that fast. I've talked about getting blow-up police cars many, many times. But the best part about these are the, not kidding. The best part about these is for the crossing guards, when someone's crossing, they actually talk to each other, so, and they're two-directional, so all four will start flashing when kids are crossing through that crosswalk area there. So that is more of a deterrent, because it kind of
Yeah.
jumps up on you.
I've seen them in Florida, those, you notice them, you do not miss them.
Yeah, Mr. Cameron, to your question, this is really, the answer is that there has to be, there's no single, aspect. There's got to be a holistic solution to, it's one of the most common complaints that we receive. We do have a bylaw that was passed recently that puts together a traffic study advisory group where folks that are interested in, potentially changing the speed limit on their side or need a new sign, where they can petition that and bring those to it. But Mark and I have talked through like reducing where the fog lanes on roads, restriping the potential for speed humps, which I'm not a fan of for a number of reasons. But I think before we got to that, we need to put in all of these other aspects of this holistic solution. One, we can't put a police officer on every corner. It would be, but even
Yeah, I'm
at
not
certain
asking
times.
that. I'm
No,
just
I know,
saying
but
on a random time, because I haven't seen him here, and I'm probably a little too early to leave the town before I see it, but that's the biggest deterrent. When you just don't know, people will abide. But when they know that there's never anybody there, they continue to, and therefore this is kind of a waste of money, and we're still subject to the risks of getting people hurt.
I would go back and support that there's no single element. It's a multiple number of different efforts and lines of effort to produce a change in behavior, right? That I think enforcement's a part of. I think striping and signage are a part, but there's no sign that I've ever seen that will prevent somebody from speeding that is going to speed, right? So my concern and support for this is about safety for our kids in these very vulnerable areas.
And just to note, the shared street grant that we got was specifically,
Okay.
that's what it was intended for, was for these type of improvements.
Got plenty of room.
Sorry.
I know I'll be the first person to get pulled over.
You will now.
By the way, I'll have a talk with you.
Chief, before you leave, want to get his license plate, registration?
You just texted it.
I just, cracked that egg, sorry.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, would you like to make a
Yes.
motion?
I move to send measure 2022-102, approval to appropriate $16,757.50 from the proceeds of the Department of Public Utilities Transportation Network Company to be used for the purchase and installation of school safety equipment at various school locations.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on. I will call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. No opposition, passes 6-0. And what is Shannon waiting for?
Thank you very much.
W.
I appreciate the patience of my peers.
Yeah, is that what Shannon's saying?
Shannon's here for the rest of it.
Oh, all right. Sure.
Yeah, I opened that.
All right, so this will be measure 22-091.
Answer station.
And I'm glad we're doing this one. Madam Chair, this is approval for funding for the first year of a 3-year agreement with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, AFL-CIO, State Council 93, Local 1702, and which I'm very, very pleased to say that Heather is the president of our local unit, and she has only been, with the town for right at a year, and is now in a very important position. I would like to ask for an amendment to this particular measure, and it's not going to change the amount. So the total amount of this agreement would come to $67,130.96. In your packet, you would also have received, along with the memorandum of agreement, a cost breakout, and because this is Linda making sure I'm doing the right thing. You'll see this sheet is this one that has the different layout, right? So the amount that would come upon approval of this to the general fund would be $48,089.60. Because this also impacts our enterprise funds, which are funded by those enterprise funds for solid waste, sewer, and water, the solid waste amount would be $7,655.44. The sewer cost would be $760.24, and the amount for water would be $10,625.68. So we just need to amend it to say $48,000 and $89 to come from the salary reserve. Solid waste would pay the $7,600 enterprise fund, for sewer, $760, and so on. So, and I'll make sure we get the language right on it. But that way, Linda will say, you just gave, an additional, $29,000 or $19,000 to, which will, to the general fund that end up falling to free cash. But those funds have to fund this part of it, right?
Right.
They do budget in anticipation. So this is an interesting situation where we were doing budget negotiations while we're doing budget development for these contracts. But there are a number of ways that those enterprise funds can pay for these increases. Like, for example, the AFSCME for sewer is very small, $760 they can do. We did authorize our enterprise funds an emergency reserve that they pulled from retaining earnings. That could also be a method. But there's a number, these funds will have the opportunity to pay from, if there's personnel turnover, hopefully not, there would be some savings there that would be able to pay for that. If there's operational expenses savings, right, or if they, for whatever reason they forecasted to spend, but they say they couldn't get it, or the item didn't arrive and it falls to the next FU, that would create an opportunity to do that, to pay for that. And then, if necessary, before the end of the year, we could come back and ask to take from the retained earnings to be able to pay for it. So that's just kind of in this first year of the contract based on where we're at for those reserves, but we would just need to modify the language slightly to say that where each of those funds are going to pay for it. Now let me walk you
Let me
through
see if she put it in here for you. Yeah, go ahead.
what this particular agreement. So again, it's a 3-year agreement with the bargaining unit. We were able to do that. We had some housekeeping to take care of in this one as well. But we produced a wage and salary table that was also included in your packet. So if you look at that, you'll see what the percentage, Kathy, was this the one that didn't have the percentages on it?
Okay, it's 222.
So this is a 222 percentage per year, right? I just want to get to that table real quick. Okay, there it is. It's attachment A, right? It looks like this.
Yeah, I've got it right here,
And
sir.
then what you'll see this is on the left-hand side, you'll see FY22 at the top, FY23, 24, and 25, right? So the agreement years are 23, 24, and 25. You'll see the wages for each one of those steps for all 3 years of the contract. So that was the wage and table. We did, there was an ask by the union that I was very supportive of to attempt to go paperless in certain ways, right, which I was, and pay the members' dues by ACH. Mr. Sweet kind of, oh, we've never done it that way. I'm like, well, we're going to do it because it's the right thing to do. We're not going to try to do this. So they've got that, and we're very happy to do that. We did also go back to our employees, and we had a discussion about personal time and the way it's utilized, and sick and vacation. So what I tried to do, one of my objectives was, understand how this time needs to be used by our employees and giving them the greatest amount of flexibility that we possibly could. So we came to an agreement that personal time could be used in hourly increments. If somebody needed to go to a doctor's appointment or pick up a prescription here in town, right, and they couldn't do it at lunch for whatever reason, instead of making somebody use a half day or a full day of personal time, we're able to give that now to them and through this agreement in hourly increments. For vacation and sick time, we also went to the model of 4-hour blocks, right? And another one of our changes that we did was we're now switching to, instead of accumulating by days, we're going to accumulate by hours. So that allows, an employee to take out of maybe 100 hours, if they need to take 4 hours, their work week, if they're on a 40-hour schedule, they would take 40 hours. So it just made it with the new payroll system and time and attendance tracking software they had, it's easy to be able to do that. So starting on 1 July with approval of this contract by this committee and the town council, we'll be able to shift that. So we were very, very happy to see that happen and moving forward. But honestly, I just want to thank the HR director for something here, believe it or not, in this one. We came to an agreement on a new form for evaluation. The previous one, it had this, system that was, to me, was antiquated and really just didn't work well, and it moved it to a place where we could give better feedback to our employees. When they were performing well, they would be able to know. So we modified the evaluation form for our employees to be able to give them good feedback on, whether they're on target or missing the target. And then, but not just saying, you didn't do this right or you did this very well, but here's what you need to do to improve, but also here's what you need to do. So I was very, very pleased with that aspect of it. And just going on some additional, the DP, I know Mark left, but the AFSCME employees that come in and work in public works during snow were not eligible and did not receive the meal stipend. And it's at $9.50. And these employees, if it's a severe storm, they're stuck there. Not many places are open, and unless they brought it with them, they're not going to have the opportunity to go out and get a meal. Or they're going to have to, partake of whatever somebody brought in or, that Mark might have acquired. So all the laborers that plow snow get this. So we thought it only fair that we included in this agreement as well for those AFSCME employees, and we were very happy to do that and work with them to do that. We also came to an agreement on one piece of language about vacancies. What we agreed to was that once you've completed your probationary period, you could then apply to other positions within that became open, right? Previously, that was not the case. If you got hired and you were still within your probationary period and another position opened up that you were eligible to apply for, you could apply into that position. It created this cascading upward movement or lateral movement within the organization that we were constantly, we'd fill the position and have to wait, they moved to this position, so now we got to add this, advertise for this one. So we asked for a little bit of stability, right? So when we hired you, we'd get a little bit of time out of you in that probationary period and then be able to, but absolutely, after that, move on when there's other opportunities that are available. So we asked for that clarification. The other items were housekeeping items, changing things from Board of Selectmen to Town Manager, right? Being able to we added the Juneteenth holiday, which was a federal and now a state holiday as well. So and recognize that, and all of our budgets were appropriately done for that. Let's see if there's any other major aspects of this one. A lot of town manager or town administrator. We did move the payroll coordinator from a grade 2 to a grade 3 through agreement with the bargaining unit. Normally we don't call out individual positions in a bargaining contract, but this was an opportunity where we had a leftover piece of business that needed to be finished up, and this was the place where we could capture it and get it taken care of. So you'll see that in there as well. And that's basically our agreement. Heather signed it, and this bargaining unit ratified this. And we're asking for your support of this contract as well. So the cost would be, just to review that one more time.
I actually gave it, you want to repeat it?
But this is
Go ahead.
updated.
$48,080.60 from the salary reserve. The remainder to be funded by solid waste, sewer, and water enterprise funds.
We're going to read those amounts into the motion. Are there any questions?
I had a little question on the meal stipend. Is that an automatic or as incurred up to?
Do you remember, Kathy? It's automatic. It's automatic when they're held back for snow. And so these are folks that are.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, was there invoices that need to be submitted and up to? Okay, but it's an automatic. If you're there, you get it.
Chris, did you have something?
I was just curious how many people fall under this contract currently within North Attleboro?
Around 25.
25. But across the town.
Right.
And, the enterprise funds as well, so.
All set? Any more questions? Okay, hearing none.
It's just to amend, approve as amended.
Okay.
One kind of off-topic question. So Monday will be Juneteenth celebration. Has that been pushed out and published that the offices will be closed or the town?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be on our new sign, I'm sure.
Last year it caught up
Ours
everybody
will be
off
helping
guard.
manage.
Well, yeah, because it just went in.
It was passed the day before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean on our school? Okay.
I move to send Measure 2022-091, approval of the funding for the first year of memorandum of agreement between the town and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, State Council 93, Local 1702, the amount of, first year amount of $67,130.96, with $48,089.60 coming out of salary reserve, $7,655.44 coming from solid waste, $760.24 coming from sewer, and $10,625.68 coming from water.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
No opposition, 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. You got a long ride, Shannon, right?
A little bit.
A little bit.
No traffic break.
No traffic.
That's for sure.
Madam Chair, this is Measure 22-096. This is approval of funding for the first year memorandum of agreement between the town and United Steelworkers, AFL-CIO, CLC, Local 9517. This one we did get correct, so you'll see the breakout. This is for funding of $108,271.17. Of that, the general fund on salary reserve would fund $74,804.37. The solid waste enterprise fund would fund $1,774.88. The sewer enterprise fund would fund $21,200.11, and the water enterprise fund $10,491.82. Again, that makes the total of $108,271.18. This was a 3-year agreement that we're happy to get with our city, but let me identify the personnel that are in this particular bargaining unit. This is our leadership within town. These are our department heads. The majority, not all of our department heads, our directors per se are not in the bargaining unit. So Mark Hollowell is not in a bargaining unit. Linda is not in a bargaining, Chief's not in a bargaining unit. So, but the vast majority of our department heads and our critical and key assistants, you'll see a lot of folks that are in the sewer and water department that hold very special, the IT department, they're all of them are in this particular bargaining unit. Kathy, the number of members in this unit?
About 34. You were at 40. 40.
At 40. Okay, so at 40. This agreement represents a 2.5, 2, and 2. So let me address our previous ones have been at 2%, which was very common. But prior to this agreement, as COVID was taking effect in North Attleboro, and we began the shutdown, and we had these dire forecasts of potential impact on the community in budget. Some of that materialized, not all of it, but we were back in 2020 bailed out, so to speak, by the Commonwealth use of their stabilization reserves. So we were level funded, but we had expected that we had the three scenarios that I briefed the Finance Committee and Town Council on at that time, that we could see a decrease by 10, 20, and up to 30% in a worst-case scenario. And we were in the middle of bargaining with the USW at that time that COVID broke out. We had started out, discussing whether we would do a 3-year agreement with them, but we both agreed that it was, the situation was a little precarious, and we wanted to bring this into something that we know that we could afford, but let's do a 1-year deal. And we did a 1-year deal with them previously for 1.5%. So not knowing whether we would be fully funded, whether our local receipts would hold. So we were very grateful for that 1 year, but my commitment to them was to make up for that in this contract. And so I readily agreed to a 2.5 in the first year. Normally you would see that bigger bump at the end, but they had gone to bat for the town and took a lower increase. And it's pretty much municipal standard, about a 2% increase on the years. So you'll see that broken down in that particular scale. I just want to look at it real quick. You'll have it, and it looks like this, right? And then what you'll see is each grade there's you'll see a 2.5 and then a 2 and a 2 column, and then steps entry through step 10. So absolutely deserving from my perspective and based on the services that they provide, right? We did come to an agreement on the executive assistant to the police chief. We had a good discussion about whether or not this particular position should be in the bargaining unit, as they are privy to confidential bargaining information. I know we were James does a tremendous job, and I won't say anything that the police chief probably, and he'd probably say more because he works with her on a daily basis, but this is a sensitive position, right? And we were very fortunate and glad that they approved that. But when the vacancy exists, that unit would come out, that position would come out of the bargaining unit. We did clarify some language, right? Based on a vacancy when it arises, right, and when we can fill it. One of the issues, and we were trying to be very proactive in filling our vacancies, and we don't see a lot of vacancies at this level, but occasionally we do, right, and there will be. But for example, when there's a vacancy, the bargaining unit gets first priority, right, to fill that position, right, and rightfully so. But we knew that, for example, who was it that we were talking about, Shannon?
Was it the nurse?
If Anne Marie were to leave, right, there's no other nurse that we have employed in town that we know of, right? Do we really need to go and advertise internally first? So we established a process by which we would say, hey, we would come to the bargaining unit and say, there's nobody in town that we know of that has this, so can we just go to external advertisement to speed the process? Otherwise, we were held by 5 days normally before we could go externally and advertise that. So we are very fortunate to have that agreement and be able to do that. And Shannon and I will coordinate on the communications on that. We also agreed on the language in the previous contract. They had specified that if the town were to eliminate a position, the incumbent could be offered that job again up to 3 years later if the town decided, hey, we need to bring that position back and create it, right? And we just felt that that was too long of a period of time that gone by to bring that person back. So within the agreeable time we settled on was 18 months. So we found that to be, okay, that's at least one budget cycle that we would know whether or not we would be able to bring that person back or not, right, if we needed it or not. But it was just, because we thought 3 years, that person might have moved on, already has started a different career. And so we thought that was a good compromise with our bargaining unit. And the language that followed it also talked about, what they would be considered for, their benefits and time, and tracking that time. We also agreed to have a reopener for classifications. This is one of the aspects of this particular bargaining unit I'm very interested in, and I know our bargaining unit is as well, to making sure that we have, in this particular unit, we have leadership, and then we have assistants and some other technical folks, but making sure they're both, in the right unit of this particular agreement. So we've agreed to come back and reopen it, and then come to a mutual agreement on what those would be. So on leave and holidays, we did add in the, it was Juneteenth. Did we add that? Is this bargaining unit, Shannon? On this contract, we added that one back in, right? There's another particular one. We also agreed that in the first year you would get 3 days of personal time. We saw that as advantageous. If, let's say you come from another municipality and you're going to fill a key position like a department head, you may have had 4 or 5 weeks of vacation time that were already accumulated, but you're coming to work from us, you lose that all, right? It doesn't come across. The least we could do to you is figure out how to give you some time, because there are things that are going to come up. You will accrue sick time from day one, but we also wanted to make sure you got 3 days of personal time to be able to utilize to support that. And we've had a case here in town where we had an employee that came across, ended up in the hospital for a little bit of time, and was working with no time. But we were able to work with that employee and come to a solution. But we figured fixing this. We also talked about bereavement time. This is one of the realities of COVID. And impact on bargaining units. A lot of times, and we've had this experience here, somebody will pass, but the interment would be one day, and then the ceremony would be at a different time. So we came to an agreement to be able to split that time. You're going to get it to attend those services. It's not like I want the last part of my bereavement to go skiing in Colorado. That's not supportable. But what this is, you may attend, an interment, and then, services with families at a different date when it's appropriate. So we were very supportive of it, and I was glad to find that we came to that agreement. We also followed the language for hourly time to be able to dismiss. We also looked at the sick bank, right? We increased the number of days to the sick bank that employees, and we were very in agreement on the language about how to apply for that and read that, and then that you have to pay into it to qualify for it. So, and then that's a very good program. I absolutely support the thing. We also talked about, how that would impact potentially childbirth, and if you needed to come and be able to use from the sick bank, if that was how that would qualify. It wasn't necessarily a diagnosis of an illness, but childbirth actually requires a significant amount of time, and we wanted to make sure that it was one of those qualifying events for this bargaining unit, and I would support that. We talked about the kennel keeper and over there, and getting them from a grade 1 to a grade 2, right? We also talked about publishing the date, and this was probably going to be more important now than anybody realizes it, but for reimbursement for mileage, and the date that the federal government publishes and then the town accountant publishes it here in town will be the effective date of when we pay that. So if you're doing some travel before X, Y, or Z, and they changed it on the next date, well, you get the old rate once Linda announces it, and that's the date we go from. Anything after that's reimbursed at the current federal rate. And we'll see that probably going up here in the future as well. We did some housekeeping items, and just making sure things were, again, appropriate with the current form of government, right? And so the last thing that I would add on this particular unit is just how important these individuals are. These are our department heads. These are our folks that are, taking the guidance and direction and putting it into action. Steve Carvalho, Shannon, right? These are the people that are sitting in our boards and committees, right? And working with them and making sure the town's headed in the right direction. So I'd ask for your support, and I'll answer any of your questions on this particular agreement.
Are there any questions? Greg?
I just have some administrative curiosities and questions. So when you said when somebody first comes in, they're given 3 PTO or personal days now.
Yep.
What was the option before? No.
It was 1 day, correct? It was 1 day.
Oh, 1 day. So what happens if they took 3 days off? Was it leave without pay? And how does that work with the salary?
Technically, you can't go without pay.
I was
right?
going to say, yeah. So
So-
is there a mechanism that allows you to go negative?
No, we don't allow any employees to go into the hole. So we'll figure out, God forbid if there was, a situation that we would come to, but if an employee is going to get paid for 40 hours, right, the town is deserving of 40 hours of labor. So we'll ensure that we receive the labor for the pay.
And there's no comp time?
On some agreements, there are comp time, and this was actually one of the, our water team is, they generate more comp time than they take.
Okay.
So it's a concern for us and something we're working with USW on to make sure that there's an agreement. Because if they don't take it, that's lost time that they're due. And we'd like to be able to support that, so.
Yeah, sorry, just an administrative question, but
No.
curious as to why you can't go negative on your vacation time, because
That would be-
my experience working with the federal government, that's what you do.
Yeah, the federal government will let you go in the hole, right? Been there, done it myself, right? But that's an unfunded liability that the town would have to carry.
Yes, until the employee
Until
earns
the
it back.
And if the employee didn't fulfill it, right,
Yeah, the risk is low that,
that's
or
right.
actually, they would just, anyway.
It would
You
create.
apply that towards the final payout of the accounting when somebody leaves if they left. But anyway, so that's my only question.
That'd be even more work. Yeah.
I do have a follow-up question on, and I guess this kind of goes to the extent of all the other programs that we're discussing here tonight, is these numbers that you're presenting here, how did they match up to the original number that you thought of or were thinking of or contemplating in developing first the $656,000 and then the $1.2 million balance? And I'm looking into the head of town manager to say, did you get what you thought you were going to get?
I got exactly what the town needed.
Okay.
And I will make this caveat to why the number shifted. One agreement that's not on this agenda for today, and it's next week, right? We had actually funded into a budget, but was not ratified by the bargaining unit. So it unraveled the budget that we had presented. So I had to go back and put money into salary reserve, come to another agreement, get them to ratify. So you'll see that one next week. So that was the only.
So that was the driver,
And
not
I have-
necessarily the individuals that we're talking
I still
about
have
tonight.
one bargaining unit that we're in negotiations with right now.
Okay.
So, and the way that will work is, once we come to an agreement, and it won't be before your finance committee meeting, because I think we're going to post the agenda tomorrow for Monday, they will get retroactively paid once the agreement is signed and approved by town council.
Any more questions?
I have
Yes, Chris.
A quick one. You had mentioned with regards to this 3 days, 3 personal days, that it would be when they start and come over from a new position.
Yes.
As I read the contract, it looks like it says that they require at least 1 year to obtain that.
It's an agreement that Shannon and I have that we will be going back and negotiating, and just doing a side letter to
To
bargaining.
correct that.
Okay.
Any more? Okay.
All right, I move to send Measure 2022-096 back to the Town Council with a favorable recommendation. This is the approval of funding for the first year of the Memorandum of Agreement between the town and the United States and United Steelworkers, AFL-CIO, CLC Local 9517. for the amount of $108,271.17, with $74,804.37 coming from the general fund, $1,774.88 coming from solid waste, $21,200.11 coming from sewer, and $10,491.82 coming from water enterprise.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. No opposition. Thank you, Shannon. Good night. Have a safe trip back. I would like to take a 3-minute recess. Kevin?
Second.
Okay.
What number was that? Sorry. Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just checked it off, too.
96, right? Is that what we are?
Yeah, that one was 9/6.
Yep.
So,
So we have 2 more left, right?
2 more.
Yep.
All set, Kevin?
Officers.
Not yet.
TV.
That's awkward.
It's okay.
Well, there I was.
Can we go live?
Yes, back on.
It's not a day that goes by, I don't want
What did he say?
We're back on.
Oh, we're back on. Thank you, we're back in session after a very brief timeout. Sir, Mr. Borg.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, the next agreement is one of our probably most critical bargaining agreements that we had. In this one, I just want to thank all the leadership of this bargaining unit and their efforts and their persuasive arguments that they applied in this process. And it was an eye-opening experience. But what we're going to come tonight and talk about is the Police Patrol Officers Association. Again, this is our patrolmen in town. This is measure 22-090. We're asking for your support for $226,465.96. This would be fully funded from the salary reserve, and it's built into that. The provisions of this particular agreement is interesting. And so let me start with some background. And Chief McQuaid it was an integral part of this negotiation. And I just want to commend the chief for his role and sage advice that he brought to the table and really was arm wrestling me at some points to get me to see the light and make sure that we were doing things the right way. But our police patrol, we were having a problem. We were at probably the lowest paying community for police wages, and that was driven primarily by the fact that the Quinn Bill, which was previously adopted by the town, and the Quinn Bill provided an educational incentive for our police officers. It essentially gave our police officers the opportunity to get, depending on what degree they had, an additional incentive. And the way the Commonwealth had set this up was, if you agree, the Commonwealth would pay half, and then the town would pay half of that incentive. And it went from 10, 15, and 25?
Yep.
Right, so 10, 15, and 25% of your base pay. So
10, 20, I'm sorry, Mike, 10, 20, 25.
that's right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. 10, 20, 25, right? So 10% if you had an associate's degree, 20% if you had a bachelor's degree, and 25% if you had a master's or a JD, or if you were a PhD, you got that. And then the Commonwealth abrogated its way out of that agreement and didn't pay anymore and left all the municipalities holding the bag. And so there was a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth and municipalities, I would imagine, of we have to make a decision. What are we going to pay? We were paying them X amount. Well, North Attleboro grandfathered everybody that was in previously at that percentage and paid them throughout. However, North Attleboro also made the decision that any new officer coming on board, regardless of their education, would only get the town's portion of that, half of that percentage, right? So what this created was a unique situation where we would train officers, they would serve here for 3, 4, maybe 5 years, and then and they might have a degree or not, and they would finish up their degree and then go to another community and make $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 more a year, and that became very hard for us to. And it reared its results by a shortage of officers that we're currently experiencing today in the ranks. We could recruit. We proved that that Chief McQuaid could go out and recruit young men and women, right, to come and be a police officer. And it's very tough to recruit today to be a police officer. I think across the country, this is not something new, but where we went from very flush to almost famine in bringing on quality. And you wanted the large number of recruits so you could be more selective in who was coming on board. But we had a retention problem. We were losing officers at the 5-year point, and maybe a little bit earlier than that, because other municipalities had made the decision to pay the full Quinn percentages. So this was brought to my attention, right? The bargaining unit came in. some very impressive gentlemen, made a very poignant, spot-on presentation of, what the problem was and their perspective on how to fix it. I agreed with most of it. Not all of it. I thought there were, we had to go back and forth on it. But the agreement that we came to ended up being this. We came up with a 3-year agreement that would lock this in. This particular agreement is a 2%, 2%, 2% over 3 years. However, there are some other unique modifiers that take place in this agreement. So let's go through the first one. So you'll see the salary schedule there for FY '23, '24, and '25. This includes steps 1 through 5, right? And it 5 years, right, which we saw as that key retention point where we were losing officers. There is an additional above that 2%, a 3% kicker on top of that at the 5-year point as incentive to bring officers and retain. So you get to that 5 years, right, where you know your job, you know the community, you're making a difference, but you're also a hot commodity among other municipalities because you've already been through all the training, right? You know how to be a good police officer, you know how to work in a community, you know how all the equipment works. That's where we lose. So we created an incentive at that 5-year point with that 5%, right, the 2% in the COLA and then 3% on top of that. And then as we look down the road, we had in the previous contract at the 15-year mark, so you would go through steps 1 through 5 in your first 5 years, and then your next longevity point was 15 years. I had a problem with that, so I had proposed back to the patrolman. I said, we need to meet you somewhere halfway. What I'd like to do, and what they accepted, was take the 3% that they had for the longevity at 15 years and split it in half. Give them an additional 1.5% at the 10-year mark. So they would start collecting 1.5% more at that 10-year mark 5 years earlier, right? So now we had a key bump at 5%. At the 5-year mark, now they're getting a 1.5% 5 years earlier at the 10-year point, and then they get the remainder at the 15. So those were key components of the agreement with our police officers that we came to. Then we went on and came to some agreement on education. So this is where and this is where actually a majority of the money will flesh out. We had a very good discussion on the value of education and degrees, right? There were certain types of degree under the Quinn bill that qualified. For example, it had to be criminal justice, a law degree, and a couple other very focused degrees to qualify. I was particularly not a fan of that, and I would say that I found the value that if you had an accounting degree, right, that you could be an effective, police officer, potentially a detective, that's working a forensics financial analysis, that you'd have a good working knowledge of accounting principles, and that would be worth it. But under the Quinn bill, in its original language, you wouldn't qualify, right? You didn't meet it because it wasn't one of the pre-approved. So we came to an agreement that with the chief's recommendation to me, if we see a value in that particular degree, and even if it's outside those established normal standards, that we would support that and pay the incentive, right? So if you had an English degree, the ability to write effective and communicate reports about crimes is paramount, right? So there is a value in these degrees and raising the bar on that education level. Here's what I proposed and what was ultimately accepted by the bargaining unit, that we were going to move the bachelor's degree to match the Quinn at 20% over the next 3 years. So we go to currently, and this, if you're grandfathered, you're getting it full Quinn already.
But if you were hired after the Commonwealth abrogated its way out of that agreement and responsibility, you got half and only half. And all of our new hires will be eligible for this as well. My focus was the bachelor's degree. That is what the education level I thought was best served by the community. If you want to go get a master's degree or your law degree, more power to you. Maybe you're going to compete for being the chief of police one day. But I think in doing your job on a day-to-day basis, that the bachelor's degree was the most appropriate degree to have. And so we targeted over 3 years of this contract, 15% in the first year for a bachelor's degree, 17.5 in the second year, and then the full quin by the end of it at third. So I was very appreciative that the bargaining unit was able to work with us to find an agreement to get us up to that full quin level for the bachelor. For the associate's degree, I was not the same. I said that degree, while it's very helpful, I think it's a stepping stone towards a bachelor's degree, and I want to help folks that don't have a bachelor's degree to get a bachelor's degree. So we included tuition assistance up to, I think, $6,500 per year that we would help provide officers to do. And I know we've got a couple officers that are taking advantage of and will qualify for this now. But that stayed at 5%, and it didn't budge. And again, you get the same for a bachelor's as you do a master's, a JD, or a PhD. Okay? Because the value for us that I felt, and I think the chief agreed, and I believe the chief agreed to me, was on the day-to-day job, it's the bachelor's degree they want to do. So we wanted to pay for the bachelor's degree and bring this community up to where almost every other community is at paying for this. And I do have it, and the chief is welcome to talk about this as well, that there were a couple of officers that were waiting on this agreement to be ratified and make a decision of whether or not they were going to stay in North Attleboro or not. I think all of them have stayed, elected to stay. So we were very pleased to see that. We wrote in language for this about body-worn cameras. We've come to an agreement that we will procure and bring into develop policies with our units as partners as a part of this, but this provided the groundwork for us to be able to proceed forward with body-worn cameras. We saw that as from the town's position, something that we would have had to have bargained the impact of regardless. We saw this as an opportunity to bring that to the table and work with them to come up with an agreement. And the chief has sponsored a working group with each of these bargaining units and looking at a couple of the different types of body-worn cameras. So we're in the process of developing those policies, procedures for that. We also, now I will, to be fair, I will use the term that the bargaining unit used for this next clause. They called it the hostage clause, right? While I called it the we're going to get paid back what we paid in for training folks to become a police officer. So when we take in and recruit somebody and we send them to the academy, we pay them entry-level salary the entire time. There's a certain amount, and we're not asking for that money back, but what we are asking is our cost to send a young man or woman to the police academy. I mean, because we buy all their equipment, right? We make sure that they have everything that they need. So for 5 years, right, if you leave within that 5 years, they agree to pay us back 100% of the tuition costs of that academy. So, yeah, it's probably, short on the money based on the experience over time that you get it, but it's something that we get back. But we also believe that the rest of this, agreement provided the foundation to retain those officers going in the future. So, to our young bargaining unit folks, the hostage clause, if that's what they want to call it, we'll do that. So the other aspects of this were a lot of housekeeping, again, changing and making sure that the grievance process, changing town manager to the board of from board of selectmen to the town manager, right? there was an old policy, and this one, I took on that, and Chief and I were talking about this one, that if we needed, to bring you back on to do a callback, there was a previous policy that we would go to your house, knock on your door, and leave a note on your door to have you come back to work. But that we've eliminated that language and have gone with, we're going to call you or email you and bring you back. So we found that was appropriate. We added the Juneteenth holiday into this, right? This was by far our longest session. This took, Chief, what, we were at 3 months, 4 months?
Right around there.
Right at 4 months, meeting, once, twice, maybe 3 times in a month, and going back and forth. We eliminated one of the entry-level steps. We cleaned it up and made sure and just evened out the number of steps. But I do feel that the most important aspect of this contract is it pays our officers what they deserve, right, for the job that they do. And I believe it will, and I truly believe this, that it will help us in recruit and retain. It doesn't make us number one, right? There are other towns out there that pay more than we do. That's true, right? But they're not North Attleboro, right? We have a great community, right? And if you come to North Attleboro and you're a police officer, you got a great career ahead of you, right? There's opportunity for promotion and advancement. If that's something that you're interested, there's opportunity for education, there's opportunity for training, and I think this bargaining unit agreement helps us achieve that and secure great officers for the town of North Attleboro. I'll answer all of your questions.
Before the committee asks any questions, Chief McQuaid, did you want to address the committee?
Absolutely.
You've been here so patiently waiting.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, everyone. My only comments, I just want to echo a lot of what Mr. Borg said. To put it bluntly, we're hemorrhaging bodies. We're absolutely hemorrhaging bodies. I think in my first 6 months, no less than 5 officers came in and said they were leaving for greener pastures, no pun intended. And I conducted all the exit interviews, and they said, I love you, I love the captain, I love the community, I love the town, love the department, would love to stay. I'm not leaving the profession, I'm leaving to go get another $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 more just to walk in the door, like Mr. Borg said. In my opinion, this is the biggest contract in the history of the North Attleboro Police Department, because right now, unfortunately, we've become a training ground, and we have for the past few years. That's not what I signed up for as a chief. That's not what any chief signs up for. Quite frankly, the community in this town deserves a lot better. We don't deserve to be a training ground. It's never been that way. Joanne, you know the history of the PD like I do, back to Mason Ave. It's never been like this, but we're at a critical point here, and I respectfully request that this contract be approved. That's all I have to say.
Any questions?
I had a question about
Ms. Patrick.
the hostage clause.
The hostage clause.
That's not our words.
Yeah.
Not our word, but, I mean, I did recognize that that's what they're paying.
How many times have we actually been able to successfully get the money back?
We've, I can't give you an exact number, Mr. Reynolds, but we have, a lot of our officers are leaving. It was 3 years, and they were leaving there, so we have recouped some money. It has been in the thousands. It's roughly $5,000 to send somebody to the academy with all the training costs. We have recouped thousands of dollars over the last 2 or 3 years, but I can't give you an exact amount. But we have enforced it.
I think we had one candidate said, I'll write you a check.
Yes,
Right now.
yeah. One department actually offered to write the check because they wanted the officer so bad. And that's the other thing, we're losing good officers. We're not losing, we have a great department, but we're losing good young officers that can be an asset to the community, and it has to stop.
I was just curious that it worked. I remember when we first put in, we were suspicious of whether or not it actually be tenable, people would actually pay it or not. We have to battle out in court or something, so good to know it actually works.
Since 2013, I know that was one of the first times. 13, 14 was one of the first times we actually recouped some money, and it has certainly happened since those years over the last 8 years or
It
so.
speaks volumes to
how tough it is to get officers out there when other towns are willing to pay that.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely.
Some chiefs won't even call over, won't even get me on the phone because they know what I'm going to say. I'm going to beg and plead with them. And
They don't take it.
I've
Yeah.
literally had chiefs from neighboring towns say, sorry, I'm so glad I'm not you. I feel bad for you. Ask me to do anything but that. I'll give
Yeah.
you I'm taking this officer. I know them. I know they're good. And thank you for training them. That's the worst thing. We train them. I actually had one chief tell me that from a not so close, nearby town. It said, it's well known in southeastern Mass, Chief McQuaid. You train them, we take them. I can't tell you how frustrating that is. The phone is still intact, but barely. Right, as you know, because like I said, who suffers? I mean, we suffer.
We do.
Right, the community, the town, and we don't deserve that. It's never been that way. But
No, you're
we're in
right.
it now.
But now, I'm so pleased to hear you say that this is one of the best contracts the patrol has had in many, many, many years.
It is.
That's a real testament to how hard everybody worked to put this language together and bring us to a point, bring our patrol officers to a point where they appreciate it and they're going to stay.
Right, like Mr. Borg said, it doesn't put us number one, but we're not in the basement.
Right.
It puts us in the conversation, and it stops the bleeding.
And I think at that point, it's where leadership kicks in, right? And the environment that we create here. It's not all about money. Money is important, and I would never argue the contrary. But where the two don't match, it's leadership, right? And it's what this town offers, and that's what we'll stand on.
Chris, you had a question?
More of a
comment?
comment, I believe, with regards to the clause for retention, as opposed to what it's affectionately called. It's not uncommon in many industries. I'm not certain about law enforcement, but I know certainly I've dealt with that when I've had reimbursement for tuition or training, that there was typically a clawback clause in the event that I left within a certain period of time, and that's fairly common. But it's really about a barrier to exit to increase the level that they would have to attain somewhere else
Absolutely.
in order to go. And if we're hearing other departments are willing to write that check for them, that just speaks to the fact that it's not going to be a barrier at this point in time.
I think that's an isolated incident, though, isn't it? I mean,
Yes,
yeah,
right.
that's pretty rare. But off what Patrick said on recovering the money, I know when you leave the employment of the town, whatever you were owed in vacation time or whatever it is that they would get paid for, wouldn't we be able to not pay all of that and I don't know if we can do that legally.
I would just say, let's.
That's why I'm looking at Linda.
That sounds like a very bad idea.
No, we can't? Oh, Kathy, we can't?
Told that
You can't? Oh, that's too bad. Well, you'd have to write that into the next contract then. All right. I had just one curious question because of the times that we're in now. Did any of the patrol officers or anybody ever discuss a small stipend for the ability to speak another language?
I think we did talk about language stipends.
Yes, yeah.
And this almost, and I don't want to say that they were myopic, right? But this bargaining unit wanted to fix the problem, the base of the problem. And so if they were, their feedback to me and to the chief was, yeah, put it in the base. Right? You can talk about all these other different things for qualifications, X, Y, Z. We'd rather see it in the base, right?
And so this is a Jerry Maguire moment. Show me the money. Okay.
And to your point, Joanne, and to echo what we're saying here, we had a Spanish-speaking officer, great officer, very highly educated, went to Northeastern University, spoke Spanish fluently, and we lost him
Yep.
to a department 2 towns over, and he came in to see me, and he said, can you give me 15,000 more? I said, nope. I said, see you later.
In jelly beans, maybe,
Right,
yeah.
and he was good, he was a great hire.
I know,
and we lost
but
him. Within
we have
two years, I believe.
such a diverse population now that when I grew up, and even you.
Absolutely.
We didn't have. So I wondered if that was something that was ever discussed, but maybe in the future. It's certainly something to consider.
Absolutely. The chief and I have spoken a number of times about, hiring a diverse, workforce, and keep going and trying until we find and meet some of those, goals that we'd like to achieve when it comes to diversity. So it's a constant discussion, and I think we're fairly well represented. We've lost some officers along the way, probably because, they would tell you that we're not paying them enough. But I think anybody that we hire in the future, we're going to make great police out of here in town.
Well, maybe the word will get back to those that left us, and they might want to consider coming back now.
Well, I don't know if I would accept them back.
You're here.
And you know what? I don't blame you, Chief, but I'd love to have one of them call you up and say, hey, I heard you got a new contract.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I could say I told you so, right? Nothing better.
Yes.
Did have another question. So if this contract is moving a lot of that available funding down to the base salary amount rather than to the education, so I guess I'm a little confused. Are we keeping the education dollars about the same?
The education is included as a part of the
Yeah.
base.
So that's staying the same, just adding to the base salary once you get the education?
Once you get the education, you meet it. So what we're doing is we're eliminating the grandfather, right? That will stay, but that doesn't change. If you were grandfathered under the old system, and a lot of our police officers are, but if you're a new person and you come in now, whatever degree you have, that's the appropriate. And the base is considered both that education and the base salary, right? And that's all qualifies for retirement as well. So they separated by the Quinn-Bill. So if I could have fixed it, I would have given one number, right?
Yeah, and I'm an accounting guy, so I just, go linear here. And usually, if the problem is we're becoming the University of North Attleboro, which I had a prior career where I was doing the exact same thing in a CPA firm. We just pay for everybody's education, then they went off because they could get better jobs. So the structure of the change had to be, you got to raise the base, but you have to dial down the education so that you're not incentivizing people to get an education to leave. You're actually not paving the way for somebody's next career. And to that point, I look at, a JD degree. That's a pretty advanced degree and one that most likely takes you out of the same context of work than a patrolman. Or, the brass, or however it's referred to as, a member of the municipal police force takes you out to a profession, doing other things. And I'm wondering, was there any consideration to have an offset for the increase in the wages, but to dial back some of those educational aspects that may be a disincentive for us?
Well, we had
Because I want to make sure we're not disincentivizing
We had
people.
one officer that did have a JD, and he was the captain, the number 2. And we were paying him, I think, 25% of his salary based on that.
Right.
But I don't want to prevent somebody from getting, but we're not paying for education and tuition assistance to go beyond a bachelor's. It's limited to bachelor's.
Okay.
So
that's what
So that basically takes care of it, yeah.
That's our benchmark. But if you want to go and get a master's degree, right, a PhD,
Right.
then maybe you want to compete to be the chief of police one day, and that might be one of the differentiating, selection criteria that puts you over the top compared to your competitors, right? But I think then you're footing the bill to do that, right? But the bachelor's degree, that was the educational
Threshold.
sweet spot that we saw that we wanted to, have all of our officers achieve and attain.
Okay. And just on a personal note, the hostage, I kind of find that, boy, that's troubling. That basically flies in the face of our military academies when you start saying that all our military academy graduates are hostages. So
5 years. They owe 5 years.
They owe 5 years, and that's the quid pro quo. And
But the truth is, it's really 8 years.
true,
because it's
true. But it's still that
Yeah.
I give and I receive. So I'm troubled by the use of that phrase.
Well, it's a disappointing word to use,
Well,
but
but look, I recognize it. I saw their frustration, right?
But it's also industry. That's, as Chris says, it's within my industry, that's outside of the rest of the world, that's kind of the way the rest of the world works.
I think they're looking at it singularly because other police departments may lose a few people, but not like we're losing it. So I think, and like Mr. Borg said, there's some years of frustration there too. So I think when you look at everything together, it's a perfect storm of certainly a poor choice of words.
And certainly glad everything worked out, but
It did.
yeah, it just,
No, I mean, I saw past that, and I knew what their concerns were, and I felt we put in a solution that would, satisfy and make us, stop the hemorrhaging and pay them fairly
Yes.
for what they do.
and that I agree with.
And then the funding is there. I'm not putting anything before you tonight or in the future that the town cannot afford.
Everybody else set? Okay.
I move to send Measure 2022-090 back to the Town Council with a favorable recommendation. This is the approval of funding for the first year memorandum of agreement between the town and the North Attleboro Police Patrol Officers Association, MCOP Local 550.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. No opposition, it's 6-0.
Madam Chair, the last item up for this evening is Measure 22097. This is the funding of the first year memorandum of agreement between the town and the North Attleboro Police Professionals. So we had just worked through the police patrol. This is our sergeants and lieutenants here in town. Only one chief and only one captain, right? So this is everybody between the chief and the captain and the patrol. Absolutely essential to this. These folks are the wealth of experience and professionalism that our force has. It is the first move from patrol into that sergeant and assuming additional responsibilities. This bargaining unit, we bargained with them after the conclusion of the police patrol. What you have before you is a budget that will ask for $86,261.16 that would be funded by the salary reserve and put into the police budget. This also does include overtime, callback, and any other additional, so as the previous. This is a 3-year contract, right? This one is a 2-2 and 2 increase for our officers. Well, the first year is not a 2, so let me correct that. So the second and the third year are a 2. This was based off of the patrol officer at the 5-year mark, right? That was the benchmark that we compared the sergeants to, and it includes a 15% above what the sergeant, or actually what the patrol makes at the 5-year point to what the sergeant's starting at. Now, you may have a very long in the tooth patrol officer that's been on 25 plus years and with a bachelor's degree that will make more than a brand new sergeant. But that's because of that overtime. Well, the longevity, the seniority, and it's available because by rules of seniority, they get the ability to ask for details or turn down details first. So, but that was an agreed upon benchmark where we would look. A sergeant usually can. They compete. It's a tested position, that as well as for lieutenant. So it's not just, okay, you're now a sergeant, right? It's somebody that has to have a desire to do it, and as well as they have to meet the minimum requirements by testing by the chief's consideration. So with that, something very similar to the police patrol. There are some longevity, but a sergeant usually comes in about chief, about the 10-year mark at the earliest opportunity. That's where normally we'll see if somebody wants to go into the leadership track, they apply to become a sergeant right around that 10-year mark. So this is somebody that's been in the force for a good while and brings that experience. So with that, the lieutenant was based on, was it 12 and a half? I think it was 12.5% difference from the entry-level sergeant, right? if I remember the percentage correctly. I may have to do the math here in a second to figure it out. But so when you became a lieutenant, you had to, one, you were tested, you interviewed with the chief. There was a couple of different tracks that they do. At the end of the day, you were based on that initial sergeant and that percentage above that. The second and third year, again, 2%, right? There was some old language in there that we kept for housekeeping. It was that the previous captain, who was a bargaining unit member prior, but under the previous captain, that came out of the bargaining unit, and it's not bargaining, but this was just a leftover. We changed all the Board of Selectmen to town manager, right? We took the notification by Post-it note on your door out and put it into email and text and telephone call, right? We cleaned up the grievance language because the town council is not involved in grievances in any of our units. That's an executive action, so that comes to the town manager. So we modified the steps to that. We added the Juneteenth in to this as well. And these officers were included in the body-worn camera working group as well. And I'd ask for your support for this, and if there's any comments that the chief wants to make about our police professionals.
I don't. Same.
Are there any questions? Craig?
This is more of an accounting question, but you're asking here for $86,000, and I guess this goes to the patrolman increase as well. How much of that actually runs through the actual tax base? And what I mean by that is, I know the police details charge back to other North Attleboro Electric or to other commercial ventures for the overtime, so therefore a lot of that impact isn't necessarily borne by the taxpayers. So from just a curiosity question as a taxpayer point of view, how much of this actually gets absorbed by the tax base versus goes off to the regular commercial ventures of the town?
Chief, you want to talk about detail and how that works?
Sure. I think, Mr. Cameron, I think you hit the nail right on the head. The contractor bears the brunt of that, and that's usually how that's paid. So that's not passed on to the taxpayer.
Right, so of this amount, I'm thinking, yes, it goes through our line as an expense item, but the revenue offsets it, so it's not as impactful because the commercial venture bears the increase that this...
For detail.
Yeah, for details,
right. However, when, like, in the current situation, what this does account for is the increase in the base salary, which both includes the Quinn bill, and all of these officers were grandfathered under the Quinn.
With the exception of one who's about to be
Well, if this passes,
right.
He would be
Tentatively.
Brought into under the Quinn and that benefit. But it also pays for the overtime, right? That is not incurred by detail. It also pays for the callback that is not incurred by detail. So those numbers that we use to calculate do not include detail, which is paid by the whoever is.
Oh, so these are straight to the tax base?
Mm-hmm.
This is all straight from the tax base. This is that detail account is separate.
Correct.
And pays them separate, which our special police officers are also eligible for as well. But I don't budget or account for any special, but they're only paid from the detail account.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just thinking from the total,
This is
how
all
much?
base and overtime and callback and holidays.
Right.
Okay.
Does anybody need an explanation on the details?
No.
Okay.
We do collect fees, like cruiser fees and
Right.
other fees that do go into general fund revenue.
Right, that does offset the ultimate burden to the taxpayer.
Yes.
That's what I was getting at. That this number doesn't,
Well, for the officer salary, right? But the cruiser fee is for equipment and fuel, right? Which the town bears the brunt of and then is reimbursed and takes that for it, based on the wear and tear and the operational cost of it. So the cost of the employee, right, of the police officer is covered by detail, not in this. Where we put tax dollars on, we're receiving, some reimbursement back for that cruiser fee. However, I've asked the police chief not to charge the town for any details that we are, so if DPW is doing it, I don't need to recruit the cost and the fuel for that piece of equipment because I'm already paying for it with the appropriated dollars that we have.
We still have, does the treasurer's office still bill as well? So we get a little bit of revenue that way too, when they send the bill out, but I don't think any of it comes close to the detail.
So I do know North Attleboro Electric.
I know, yeah.
We charge them, sir.
Yeah. Well, you charge us, so we charge you. That's where it goes. Don't shut off the streetlights tomorrow, please. Okay.
If we do, we'll have to send a detail out.
Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll call for a motion.
I move to send measure 2022-097 back to the town council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. No opposition. It's 6-0. Thank you. And now, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
Do you want to do minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. We're going to go back to the minutes. We didn't have enough members. I apologize.
Oh, you could have a 2-0 vote.
Well, yeah, I'd like to have a few more than that.
Sure, yeah. I move to approve Finance Subcommittee minutes of May 11th, 2022.
I'm going to abstain, yeah, thank you.
Who's second?
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes of, what is the date now? Thank you. May 11th, 2022. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No. Abstention?
Abstain.
Okay, so it's 402. It is the final vote. Now you can go back to what you're going to say.
Yeah. Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. No opposition? Time?
17.
We are adjourned at 9:17. Thank you, everybody.